Welcome to the From Concealment Podcast, the show for firearm enthusiasts who like to shoot, train, carry, and compete. Get ready for some shooting insight, firearm and accessory reviews, and of course, insight on concealed carry. And now, broadcasting from behind enemy lines in the From Concealment studio, it's Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams.
Hey, Freedom Nation, you are listening to the From Concealment Podcast, and I'm Pete Mitchell, and I've got a special guest here with me today, Lance Boland with F.A.S.T OC. Lance, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Pete. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. So let me tell you a little bit about Lance. He's one of the only people on the face of the planet that's beat Bob Vogel. Oh, wait, I probably shouldn't start with that.
That's a bold claim. No, I wouldn't start with that. Oh man, I can see my my Facebook page and Instagram blowing up now.
No, so I did make him share with me, and maybe later we'll share the video of what was that event that you had him out for? Because you invited him out for like a training or something, right? I did. We brought him out. I'm wanting to say it was like 2017. It was just a couple years ago, and we brought him out. We secured a remote private range for a very exclusive class with him. We had, I think it was a total of 18 students out there. And it's what you'll see in the background. It's not even a range. It's just an area that we'll keep private for now. We tend to use it from time and again for events. And he came out, and it was all about competitive handgun. It was actually, and something we'll talk about in this podcast, is something that made me have a realization about shooters in general. But he came out, was showing all different types of techniques for shooting, USPSA, IDPA, all different techniques. It was a really fun class. A lot of people just camped out in that location that night. It was 2 days long, and the second day we're kind of winding down, and I was telling them about this drill that I learned from one of my ILFE instructors. It's called the 1x5, and it's 3 targets spaced out, so one far to the left, one in front of you, one far to the right. And the drill that everybody watches the video is 1 shot on the first target to the left, 2 shots on the target in front of you, 3 shots to the target on the right, back to the center, 4 shots, back to the far left, 5 shots, a total of 15 shots. We're shooting on IDPA targets, has an 8-inch 0. And I was telling him about this drill. We'd ran a couple cool drills with Bob, and I told him about this one. He had never seen it before. And he asked what my time was, my average time. And I was like, I don't know, it's like 3.6, 3.7 out of the holster, not from concealment. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. So we set it up. And Bob rips through this thing. And there's a crowd of people watching. It's the first time I ever shot this in front of a challenge in front of a crowd. And so we get up there, I stand up, and I'm pretty sure the gods started to influence stuff, because you see the wind start blowing, targets start moving around. I'm thinking, okay, now I have an excuse if I don't actually perform to the number I said. And we ended up, I ran a 3.68 is what he calls off. And you can actually hear our corporate counsel in the back, who also attended the training, kind of make an explicative. So that's literally my claim to fame, is I shot a drill 0.12 seconds faster than Bob Vogel, who had never shot the drill before. So it's official that on your tombstone, you're going to have this video clip just play over and over and over.
Yep, looping. Yeah, we'll get a little solar panel on top, so it'll be there in memoriam for.
And for any of our listeners who don't know who Bob Vogel is, he's like, didn't they come up with the Vogel rule in competition? It's what we call
it was commonly referred to in IDPA as the Vogel rule. And what happened is Bob would show up to matches, national level matches or tier 5 matches, and win every time without exception. And not kind of win, like just kind of edge somebody out, but literally crush their soul by shooting half the time of the guy that was number 2. And people were getting frustrated because IDPA has a classification, that's your ability, your skill set rating, that is called Distinguished Master. And it means that in your division, you took the top spot. So you went from Master, you went to Distinguished Master. They created a level just one step up, saying, I have won a national level competition. I was the best in the nation, or best in the world if you did it at a Worlds. Nobody could win, especially in like stock service pistol, because Bob would always win. So there was one distinguished master, which was Bob, going on for years. And they finally said, okay, if you get within 3% of his score, we'll give it to you. So and we commonly referred to as the Vogel rule. That you got your DM through the Vogel rule. You didn't actually win. So yeah, he's really that good. And one of the things that I look at shooters is not only are they a good shooter, but are they a good person? And Bob's one of those rare exceptions that he is a good person.
Yeah.
He's approachable. He'll share knowledge with you. We ran into him at SHOT Show. It was kind of cool because, he yelled out to us, which, makes us feel, all special. Right. Like, oh my God, exactly. Bob knows us, kind of starstruck. And he's very laid back, very down to earth. His teaching style is, you can see it in his instructional videos that are out online that was done with another organization where he just kind of walks through and talks about what he does and how he does what he does. And it's all, honestly, I've adopted it. I show one of his videos and even my basic handgun class when we talk about grip. And he's an awesome guy.
Yeah, that's awesome. So for those of you who don't know Lance is, I'm going to have you actually tell everyone how you got to where you are, but Lance is the president, founder, owner, whatever you want to call it, of F.A.S.T, which, in fact, I think I met you because I wanted to learn how to hand roll ammo, right? So I went through your
the reloading course.
I think that was the first one I went through.
It was.
And then I got into shooting the handgun competitions. And so I always like to joke. For those who've been listening to the podcast for a while, they know that I basically train at two different places. I train with you and I train with Michael Hernandez over there at FT3.
Yep.
And Michael Hernandez, they have their own little handgun competition. If I'm not in the top 3 people over there, I'm pissed. Because I need to be like at least number 3, bare minimum, if not number 1. If I make it in the top 50% of the F.A.S.T, I'm thinking, dang, dude, I was on fire today. That's how good the F.A.S.T guys are. I mean, you guys are just insanely good, especially Chris. Oh my gosh, dude. It's like Chris shows up. Yeah. It's like, okay, this is going to be a fun thing just to watch.
Yeah. People either stand to watch him or people leave because they know they're not going to win.
Well, for me, I love it too much. It's like I'm not that into it where I'm like feeling bad that I lose against really any of those guys. Even Lindsay, it's like, dude, she's kicking my butt. That's cool. Yep. I mean, these guys are good. So, so anyway, how did you get to doing all of that stuff?
Well, I guess just a series of misfortunate steps, really. I can't claim any form of anything other than, I guess, Irish luck, or Irish misfortune, however you want to refer to it. I started shooting when I was 6 years old. That was with my dad. And drilling the safety. My dad was a Marine. My dad was also an NRA instructor. I still have my dad's original NRA certifications as instructor when they were only doing rifle and shotgun. That the pistol certification, I don't believe had actually been created yet. So, because they were long gun, National Rifle Association.
Right.
So I learned under him, starting at 6 years old. I was growing up in Idaho. So plenty of places to shoot around there. The gun culture, very predominant. From that translated, we moved back to Southern Illinois to, goose hunting and deer hunting. It was a little bit different type of environment down there. At the age of 19, I joined the Marines, followed my father's footsteps, right down to the MOS that he had. My dad was a mortarman. When he went into the Marines, I was also a mortarman, and ended up getting assigned to a Marine Security Force regiment, where we started kind of stepping away from your organic infantry type of firearms, the rifle and some of the bigger guns, to handgun, shotgun, and some of the tactics and techniques that go into that. So did that for a couple years. Got out of the Marines in 98.
Got shot.
There's all kinds of crazy crap. Oh man, that's another podcast, man. I mean, between getting dinged and fragged, and this still happens today.
Right. Well,
even I have to go. Setting on the military aside, I have been in, and this was like range safety. We were shooting a competition in. It was not IRC. I'm sorry. It was an I-Corps competition. It was a regional out in Mesquite, Nevada, and I'm standing there scoring a tablet and literally get drilled in the jaw from a round that was negligently discharged on the other end of this facility. I can't even call it a range. It's a facility out there. And took a 158 grain Bear Creek 38 special round in the jaw. It wasn't a ricochet, wasn't flattened out, hadn't hit anything other than my face. Same thing, berries. Took a ricochet at berries that just about took me out of the fight. So it still continues this day. I'm a magnet, man. People, I go to the range, my team stays away from me because just they know I'm going to get hit every time. Yep. So got out of the Marines, kind of started to friends and families, people like, hey, can you show me to shoot? And honestly, it's the way the military teaches doesn't make you a firearms instructor. It makes you familiar with your firearms, but you're certainly not qualified unless you're what we would call a coach or a PMI, primary marksmanship instructor. Or do you really have a background? You've done it, but doesn't mean that you can teach it. So kind of flailed around doing that until I realized that I should probably have some type of credential behind me saying that, I kind of know how to teach. And two, that I'm able to get some type of insurance in case something unfortunate happens. And found TJ Johnston in Orange.
Yeah,
He's literally right down the street from us. Michael Hernandez works very close with them.
Yep.
Both very awesome people. Mike's wife's awesome. And went through him and kind of saw his style of edutainment, which was really attractive. I liked the way he presented information. The classes would just fly by. It wasn't like sitting there like you needed a morphine drip to get through the course of study. And at the end of that, went out and I was like, well, maybe I should, try my hand at this, and started teaching in this little tiny conference room in a buddy of mine's shop. And that lasted all of about 9 months. We outgrew it. Was contacted by the National Rifle Association. They said, hey, do you want to be a training counselor? Submitted for the workshop, ended up in the workshop, became a training counselor that trained instructors. And that was kind of the growth spurt for F.A.S.T in correlation with Orange County opening up CCW training to more than just 3 people. They had a list of 3 providers that had it pretty much locked down when we first started. And that eventually grew into being able to submit and get on the providers list. And we did that. We had our struggles, but looking at coming from, kind of the quasi-tactical type of shooting with handgun in the military, going into a more defensive mindset and a defensive style of shooting was something that, I definitely needed a background in. I needed to study. So took the opportunity to go through that coursework. In the meantime, F.A.S.T started to grew well beyond anything I ever planned. We went from a conference room to about now, about a 1,900 square foot facility that we train in. We've got our simulators. We've got not a reloading bench. We have a reloading training area now that we work with. The classroom I'm actually sitting in, we can seat up to 22 people, even though we don't. We usually keep it around 6 to 8. All the amenities, the big, it just kept growing and growing and growing. And I guess I got fascinated with the growth of the company. But one thing I always held true to, and I hold true to this day, is that if you do this for money, you'll find ways to make more money. And usually what happens, and what I've seen happen in the community around here, is that they start cutting corners.
Right.
People come in and say, well, I can fit 8 people. You know what? I can fit 2 more. I can fit 2 more people in this class. We'll take it to 10. And we're doing 4 hours of range time. But you know what? If I take it to 10 and I do 3 hours of range time, I'm not paying another $120 for the range, and I'm getting 2 more course fees. And that scale starts to tip where you've got 12. I've seen classes, 30 people in a class. And not a person in that class is learning a thing. They don't even get a chance to ask a question. The range time's limited. They shoot their basic qualification. They're done. We've kept it, we keep our basic classes around 6. We keep our CCW classes at right around 8. That way we have that rapport. We can create and develop a rapport with our students. We can see if they're having a challenge, even if it's down to something very minute, like a grip or a technique. I can see those students on the range. We keep our student instructor ratio around 3 to 1, roughly, sometimes 2 to 1. And, we see that the development of our clients has certainly exceeded my expectations, especially when it comes back to renewals. Right. And still them with that confidence and that skill set that doesn't get them in a slide that I always show here, which is called the Dunning-Kruger effect. and which is where you have a scale of competence and a scale of confidence, where they have very high confidence and very low competence, and it gets stuck on the peak of Mount Stupid. And I will say, and we'll probably discuss a little further, most of the renewals, the CCW renewals that I see come through, unfortunately, people have kind of stopped at that spot with their training, and never really progressed past it.
And that actually brings up a great question. So since you've got your finger on the pulse of what's happening, not just in the whole nation, but here in California, which is so hostile towards gun owners, towards carrying. I mean, fortunately, we happen to live in a county that likes it, encourages it, but that's a rarity in this state. But right now, it's a weird time with coronavirus, protests that are turning violent into riots, everything that's going on with that. The state of California, last I've checked, it's basically sold out of guns. Like it is. Yep. You can't get anything.
We have seen in this industry a component of what's going on right now, meaning that, we've seen ammunition shortages. We've seen supply shortages. If you go back and you look at when Obama made alterations to the lead industry, made alterations to military brass coming off of ranges and being made available for public sale, little component shortages, or you go back to the Sandy Hook shooting when there was a big rush on firearms that hit firearms and hit the ammunition sales, and that was a supply chain management issue, meaning that the guns are there, getting them through warehousing to distribution to retail to consumer. There's a lag. It's kind of the rubber band effect where sales start to exceed, but just the supply just hasn't got into the stores yet. And that lasted a better part of a year or so, maybe a bit longer. This is the first time we've had a global impact to the supply chain. Right. Meaning that people are not in the factory. There's no miners at work that are mining copper and lead and zinc. Those raw supplies aren't getting to manufacturers to make alloys for brass or to, bullet hardened lead. That isn't getting into the manufacturer, the OEM manufacturer, to produce the items. That isn't in the chain for warehousing, for distribution, for retail. So it's all the way back to digging it out of the dirt has been impacted. That we haven't seen before. Couple that with civil unrest, and now we're running into an issue where we have an impact of the supply chain from demand and an impact of the supply chain on actual supply. Some of the stuff I've read, NSSF, National Shooting Sports Foundation, has put out a publication. It's all over Facebook, and you kind of take the components. I honestly think, optimistically, 2 years. Optimistically, 2 years before we see where it's like, hey, I'm going to go pick up a case of 9mm, and there's not going to be a question about it. Impacting that obviously is November. If we see, what you and I would consider the opposition winning the White House, we're probably going to go right back into the Obama era where everybody panics, everybody's buying. It may last not 2 years, but maybe the next 6, possibly the next 8. I mean, that's a very dark cloud over the thinking, but it is a possibility. So
that's just crazy.
Oh, absolutely. And that's something that, I guess it's truly a study in human behavior. I've seen it. You've seen it, both from our own industries that we work in, that people who are unprepared aren't unprepared for one thing. They're unprepared for everything. Right. It's just who they are. We get people that will submit worksheets like, hey, we need your worksheet. We need your worksheet for the CCW renewal course. I've got to print the certificates out so I can do my job. And they'll wait till, 4:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the class starts to submit it. They haven't read the emails. They don't know where to go. They don't know that we're upstairs. They're unprepared for the range. They don't have eyes and ears. It's not just one thing in their life. It's everything in their life is all the same way. Versus the people that, and it's a term that used to be thrown around as an insult. Oh, you're a prepper. You're a prepper. nobody's saying that anymore. You notice all that
No
rhetoric
one's saying
changed.
that anymore. Yeah.
That rhetoric changed, and it's the people who were prepared, that are well organized, very analytical, that watch the news, that watch trends, that practice with their firearms, that have some caches and supplies of ammunition, food, water, everything for their family. And they're also the first ones to be like, don't come over to my house.
Right.
Don't come over to my house. When this breaks loose, like, this is my stuff for my people, not your people. You should have done the same thing. So yeah, and
I've had people say to me, "Oh, well, I know where to go if it hits the fan and I need a gun." I'm like, "Well, don't be coming to my house. If you don't have a gun by this point, you're not getting one of mine. That's for sure."
Exactly, and that's one of the things that I'm obviously looking at the darker side of things is people who espouse their political views are really opening the door to potential liabilities when the whole stuff hits the fan thing happens, because I know they're not coming to my place, but I may be going to yours. So, keep putting out the Biden-Harris, signs out in your front yard, because it says everything about who you are as a person. The likelihood you're probably not armed. You probably don't have ability to defend yourself. You're going to roll over and show your belly if somebody threatens you. And in a world of chaos, we have to be the gray man. Not that we're a hardened target, but we should just go unnoticed.
Right.
The bad guys drive right past the house, never gives a second look, because it just doesn't look like there's anything there worth taking. Versus somebody who proudly states that, I'm on this side or I'm on that side, and I'm either a target for violence because you disagree with my political opinions or any type of opinion, versus somebody who may be a bit more aggressive, that's desperate, that may know that you're the one that's going to be easy pickings and we'll go through you first.
Right.
So,
right. What are you seeing with people, new gun owners? Because what is there, like a couple million new gun owners in California alone? Something like that?
The statistic that I saw, and I believe it came through California Rifle Pistol Association, that they looked at the DROSs, the dealer record of sales, that had never grossed a firearm previous to that. And the number that they gave was essentially a doubling of the number of gun owners in the state of California, which is fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. One of the things that we joke around the shop is, once this all kind of calms down, there's going to be a lot of consignment guns out there that are probably going to go cheap. So let's keep a lookout for them. So haven't seen it yet. And the way things are going, probably won't. But
yeah, no, it's I've been able to sell some guns for premiums. It's like, what? You're going to buy that for what? I mean,
yep. I had someone offer $1,500 for my carry gun, my Glock 19, and I'm all like, I'm at like 90,000 rounds through that gun, and they're like, "That's fine." I'm like, "You don't understand. It's it's like one of my kids, man."
Yeah, exactly. That's the only. I've had so many people go, "Hey, I want one of your Glocks." I'm like, "No."
Yep.
Those ones. Those aren't for sale.
I just picked up, and I think you probably saw it in the shop. The slide that I had, the chrome slide that had the laser etching down the side.
I don't think I saw that. No.
Okay. I ended up purchasing it off the gunsmith at Evans Gun World.
Okay.
Awesome guy. The new guy, Robert, awesome guy too. Does great work, very detailed work. And he says, "Hey, do you want a slide for a Glock 20?" And I was like, "I don't have a Glock 20. But I was looking at a 21 SF, and I'm like, wow, the slides are interchangeable. So yeah, you know what? I'll do it. I have a 45 and a 10 millimeter, and got the slide, set it on the shelf, just use it as a showpiece. Like, hey, don't put stuff on your guns that you're going to regret in the event of a defensive shooting. And it has the same font and text as the wallet from Pulp Fiction that Samuel Jackson asks him to retrieve from the bag. So I said, this would be something that you would want to leave off your carry gun. Why? Well, criminally, you may not get hooked on it, but civilly, it gives them a thread to pull on to convince of at least a couple people not smart enough to get out of jury duty that you're guilty of this.
Right.
Had a student come through, and he has a Glock 20, and I was all like, and it was kind of dressed up, looked nice, kind of some chrome features on it. And we got talking about it. He goes, "Yeah, I'm looking to get rid of this thing." And I'm like, "Oh, really? So for how much?" And he named a price, and I was like, I literally just walked over and handed him cash. I'm like, let's do it right now. Like, we'll DROS when we get to the range for the renewal. So the next day we actually were able to commit the DROS, and so that is my new carry gun.
Nice.
I get that on my permit, and I'll be carrying something that I've always been a fan of 10 millimeter auto. I've always been fascinated with the story behind it. It originally came from Colonel Cooper, who developed the ballistics or developed the round from the 30 Remington cartridge. So it is literally a cut down rifle round. That 10 millimeter auto is what that is. So
I want a 10 millimeter. I haven't shot one, but I want one.
Yeah, next time we get to the range, we'll pull that thing out. I've got the it's an SF, it's a short frame, but I have the 20L, the 20 long slide and barrel on it, so it gives it just a little bit more and bumps the feet per second of, I think, roughly from what I saw, about another 80 to 100 feet per second on a round that is already at rifle speeds. So go
That's
big or
nice.
go home, right?
That's nice. So what are you seeing with all these new gun owners who, if they're in Orange County and they know that they can get a carry permit, are they showing up in classes? If they are they prepared? What's it like? What are you seeing with them?
Here's what we have going on. Obviously the panic, they panic purchased a gun. More than likely it's not a good fit for them. We had someone that tried to come through with, and I forget the name of the firearm, forgive me. It's a 22 caliber revolver. It's literally that big. It's a little 5-shot revolver. To reload it, you have to pull a pin out of it and drop the cylinder out, reload the cylinder, put the cylinder back into the frame and push the pin back in. But what we're seeing is panic buying and panic taking the class. This is my own personal philosophy on this, is that I drive a vehicle, you drive a vehicle, but would either you or I be ready to go drive in the Talladega 500 tomorrow?
Right. Of course not.
So that's kind of what's happened. That's exactly what's happening. So we're seeing some filtration of these people trying to come into the class, and I applaud them for wanting to take that step. Everybody has the right to defend themselves. But the challenge becomes is when you have a mixture of students in the class that are ready and prepared, and then a group of students who are not prepared. Everybody's paid the same fee. Everybody has a right to be safe and comfortable in the class so that they can learn the right way of doing, or a way of doing things, and not have to fear for their safety from the student that's next to them that has absolutely no experience. We developed a safety notification that goes out on when you sign up, saying that this class is not for novice or inexperienced shooters. Here's the prerequisites. We're more than willing to work with you. We'll put you in one of our basic classes. I've even pulled time aside and worked in a more private fashion with some of my clients to get them where they needed to be so that they would be successful in the CCW class. And again, we're jaded. We'll be totally honest with you. We're jaded because the revenue that F.A.S.T generates goes into F.A.S.T. The instructors, we don't take a cut. We don't get paid. We do this as a passion. So if we end up with a class of, 4 to 6 people, it's enough to, keep the lights on, keep the coffee pot running, which is most important, and make sure that we're, we live to fight another day for our next class. So having to dismiss a student from the class is always hard, having that come into Jesus talk. Nobody likes being told that, they're not good enough. But we try to set a roadmap for success, and we're starting. It used to, it'd be like one every two, every second or third class, we'd get somebody that was probably not where they needed to be. We're seeing it 50% of the classes now. To go back 2 CCW classes ago, keep in mind our class size is only 8 to 12. There was 4 dismissed. The class prior, there was 3. This last class we just taught, there was 1. So I think our insistence on having students that meet the prerequisites is important. I don't want to sound like an elitist academy, because that's not what it is. If you ask my personal opinion, I don't even think we should need training. I don't. I mean, it's your right to carry. This whole process is kind of ridiculous that we have to go through and ask the government permission for our rights back. On the other side of the coin, as a mentor and as a use of force instructor, the class should be 600 to 800 hours long to get people prepared for an eventuality of a defensive encounter. It's not enough. The qualification is too lax. So I'm really kind of split in those two worlds of everybody should carry, but man, I've seen the people that try to do.
Right.
And, I encourage them, for us, we run advanced CCW clinics, which is not just the same old humdrum activities. It's a hyper focus on on a particular skill set that evening. It's not even something that I feel myself I'm qualified to teach. And I have federal law enforcement officers come in and teach those clinics that have literally been doing that their whole life. They've been through the FLETC training, and it's not just agents, it's firearms instructors and use of force coordinators for those agencies that come teach those. And
didn't you used to have or still have a former air marshal or something like that?
Yeah, he still is. Yep, that's Rob Harris. He's teaching a series. It started off with 6. It's grown to 18 courses or clinics. It's now at 21 clinics, and he just keeps killing it. He does. He's an extremely imposing human being. He's a big dude.
He is.
And I can't imagine. I was like, and you were an air marshal? Did you fly cargo, or like, how did they get you in the seat? He's a gigantic human being. Great big teddy bear, great guy, phenomenal instructor. The real deal. And, one of the things, the first meeting when I first met Rob was right after, we had to send somebody out of F.A.S.T as an instructor for lying about their background. And the first thing he does when we sit down is he flashes his badge on me. He goes, "I just want to let you know I'm real." Everybody in the restaurant stopped and was staring at me. And I'm all like, no. It's an interview, folks.
I'm not in trouble. I'm not in trouble.
I'm not in trouble. It's federal air marshal. We're not on an airline. It's cool. So yeah, he, wanted to pose that he's the real deal, showed me all of his, his background, his certification credentials for training. And we've really tightened things up and looking for not only providing the best, but providing the best from the best. And that's what's been important to us. And everybody on board right now has the same mindset. Like, these people have to be trained. They're going to have the worst day of their life. They need to survive it. They need to do it right. They need to do it with a reasonable amount of force. And that's the staff. They call it the Phoenix from the ashes, but it's really what my new driving point was to bring this to the public. So
what would you suggest to someone who's, let's just call them a new gun owner? What should be their progression? Like, how much is enough training to get started? I mean, obviously it's never enough to be done, right? But what should be their path? What should mentally they be thinking as far as, like, what, I need to commit to go on once every other week, once a week? What would you suggest?
I have to give the suggestion of the here and now. And if I say, every couple of weeks going to the range, one, it's expensive. I saw ammunition at the range the other day, $32 a box, when it used to be down, I think, around 11 or 12. So the cost of training has skyrocketed.
Right.
So that makes it really difficult for me to impress upon a student to say, hey, you need to go shoot. You need to do the thing. And, that is really a barrier to entrance to the training, to the craft. One, get familiar with the handgun, inside, out, its working parts, know it intimately, how it unloads, get comfortable with the feel of the gun and handling the gun in a safe direction. It's the number one thing for us. The problems that, if I had to catalog the number one problems that get people, in a little bit of hot water in the classes, is keeping the gun pointed in a safe direction, keeping the finger off the trigger. That has to be mastered. 2, if we get into marksmanship, dry fire. For CCW people, dry fire, dry draw, but do it right. We use tools here. We call it's called the Mantis X. It's the one thing, if you've been in the classroom, I don't retail, I don't have a bunch of banners, nothing. The classroom's actually pretty sterile here. I've got some plaques on the wall. I've got some competition plaques for accomplishments. But we don't retail anything in this classroom. I think it's unethical to do so. But the one thing we do actually have, the one thing that, because it works, we've worked with the company, is called the Mantis X. And right now, being able to go to the range, it's tough. A lot of times I've seen the ranges are crowded too. The actual training time is expensive. If we can do that at home and build proficiency with the firearm at home, it doesn't cost you a dime. The device is $250. Okay, that kind of stings. But every dry fire after that doesn't cost you a penny.
Right.
I've seen remarkable improvement in shooters when they dry fire, but they dry fire correctly. And they have feedback, empirical data. They've got metrics. They can see what they're doing. They get immediate corrections, and it works awesome. So
yeah, one of the tools that I started using last week, and I've had it for a long time, is a dry fire magazine is what I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it just resets the trigger for me. And what I found that I really needed work on is I use my red dot as my carry gun more than any other firearm. And the problem for me is when I'm presenting in that rush moment, I got to find the freaking red dot, right?
Yep.
I'm like, I got to do more dry fire. I got to do more dry fire to like hone that presentation in and always be on. And that's been helping me a lot.
Yeah, it is. It's the shortest distance between 2 points, a straight line. And one of the apps that they put on the Mantis X actually shows you your draw stroke, your draw line. And, if you have that fishing cast draw or that bowling draw, you're going to see that line start kind of snaking around or hooking at the top of what that gun's actually doing as it comes up, and let you get more proficient, more of a economy of motion in your draw stroke. And it's the people that we put on it, one, their marksmanship is absolutely outrageous now. Their skills increase exponentially over everybody else. Their draw times plummet. Most of the people that we put on the Mantis or that purchase it that are working for that holster draw have gone from 3 to 5 second draws.
Wow.
When they come into our advanced clinics, they're at about 1.5 seconds. That's from concealment, draw first shot. So there's a market improvement, an exponential increase in skill set when you find a tool that works and then you use it faithfully and really try to get there. I can't speak high enough against Mantis X. In fact, just today, they opened up the Elite Marksman qualification. They had basic, they had advanced to get patches for. They just opened up Elite. Haven't even had a chance to see what the drills are for it yet, but I'm kind of looking forward to doing it because I'll tell you what, it's frustrating. It is frustrating trying to accomplish those drills. They do a really good job.
Yeah. I remember, I've got the Mantis X, but I've got their version 1, and I think they're on like version 2 now, and it's so much better, the newer ones.
Yeah, the X10 Elite are the brand new ones. They're smaller, especially you're doing holster draws. You can get the magazine base pad for it and attach that. And it's not as encumbering as the very first version, which was much larger. And yeah, it's awesome. I mean, like everything goes to improvement, a tool that helps improve. I'm all for.
Yeah. That's awesome. So tell me, what do you think are some CCW training courses that people really should be taking a look at? Without hyping us up too much, obviously we do the advanced clinics. Again, something different every single time. The philosophy that we went with was it's $125 the first time you go. Anytime after that, right now, it's $50. We know you're taking 3 hours of time. We know you're spending money on ammunition because we go through 200 or 300 rounds. We don't need to beat you up on that. Again, if we're not taking money out of the company, I don't need to inflate the prices. We just have to pay for the range. So we cut it off. We have a limited number of students we take, usually around 15. And it's, if you want to hyper focus on a skill, awesome. Some people look at the catalog and be like, I really need to work on this. I really need to work on moving off the X. I've never really practiced shooting from an alternative shooting position. Some people may look at it and be like, yeah, from 0 to 3 yards, I feel like I'm comfortable or competent. So I'll skip that one, but I'll take the next one. Didn't you say you had someone you had to kick out of class recently who couldn't pass the 3-yard test?
Oh yeah, for our renewals. Going into that, that's something that when, again, a study in human behavior, and I don't want to disparage my students and I don't want to be taken like that. It's just, this is how serious we take and look at training is you've been carrying for 2 years, at least 2 years at that point, meaning you've done an initial class and you're coming up on your 2-year renewal. So let's just throw the 2-year tag on it. Come through and at the 3-yard line, and you're required 24 hits at 3 yards, 24 hits at 5 yards, 24 hits at 7 yards, so a total of about 72 rounds. If you drop a shot at a yard line, okay, there's enough in the scoring to kind of allow for that. Drop 2, that's pretty much a disqualification. So I hung the target. We got our shooters running. We're running 6 bays, kind of going back and forth. As I'm coming back, I see 4 hits completely off the silhouette. And hey, stop real quick. How many shots have you fired? 4. You haven't hit the silhouette yet. So we're going to have to kind of bring this evening to a close for you, talk about some training options and go from there. But that person was carrying for 2 years.
Yeah, that's scary.
So, yeah, hurting feelings, all that aside, let's look at the real problem. There was an individual in Orange County carrying for 2 years that could not hit a B-27 target. An NRA B-27 target, it is a massive silhouette. It's so big, I have to hang it so high on the runner at the range, because if you shoot the head, you'll hit the ceiling. If you shoot the bottom, you hit the floor at 3 yards. That's how big that target is to your perspective. So I always inquire, well, who is your original instructor? Because if that lies on F.A.S.T.'s shoulders, I need to address that. Something happened, the training didn't stick, or through a previous instructor here, it totally got overlooked. Provided a name, wasn't us, and gave training options. I had another one more recently that it's about the 5-yard line started to struggle. And I said, okay, we got to draw this to a close. Let's try you again on our next session. Let's work on some things here. Come back, we'll get you qualified, but I think you need a little more intensive work with your firearm. Ended up, I counted 77 rounds on the floor because they didn't know the operation of the firearm. So they would pull it, ride the slide home, gun wouldn't fire, eject that round, ride the slide home, gun wouldn't fire. And I know there's stress, I know there's nervousness, but it's not going to be not near the stress and nervousness of actually being in a deadly force encounter that you're going to try to introduce that gun into. You're literally introducing an unstable element into a very critical situation. And I was asked, like, what's your recommendation? I said, if I were you, I'd start carrying mace, because that gun's not going to be effective because you're not proficient with it.
Right.
Tried again the next week, failed again. So it's the training literally goes into the Dunning-Kruger effect. And here's what happens. Student goes through CCW. They get a certificate. They get their card issued from Orange County. I've accomplished and I'm done. And they literally go to the peak of Mount Stupid. The next step off of that is additional classes where they begin to realize I'm not as good as I thought I was. There's a lot I have to work on. You've experienced it. I've experienced it. I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to understand that. There's too much to this. Competition shooting was the same thing for us. That it's like all these rules and all these things, and I can stand here, but I can't stand there, but I can drop my mag, but I can't drop my mag, and I have to have so many rounds in my gun, but I can do this. And it's completely overwhelming, and we get a sense of despair that I'm never going to master this. I'm never going to accomplish this. It's not for me. Maybe I don't have the predisposition to be this type of person. And we don't like that. We don't like hearing that. We don't like having somebody else tell us we're not good enough or you need to get better. It's built in. It's literally the world we live in.
Right.
We live in a world of immediate gratification. We live in the world of participation trophies where everybody wins. But when we come to life and death, there's a concept that we have to apply that says, no, you're not good enough and you do need to get better, because not only is your life at stake, but everybody's lives around you is at stake in case you send one deep and you hit that mom with their 2 kids walking into Target. And now you're going to be liable for it. The stakes are much higher at this level. And they don't like being told that, so they never come back and they never train until they have to qualify. And then they can't. I have a folder on my desktop, my email, of almost the same email from dozens and dozens of people of saying, can I get private range time with you or a private lesson? My qualification's coming up and I want to make sure I pass it. I'll ask if it's okay to post a video of this, but our corporate counsel and I went down to the range and we blindfolded him. And he passed the qualification. Blindfolded. And we have people who can't pass with eyes wide open, been carrying a gun for 2 years. It's scary.
I think the real question is, can he pass it unblindfolded?
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, he has. Yeah, he's got a wall of most accurate plaques. Yeah, I mean he's not fast, but he's very methodical. And time and time again, he goes, I wasn't first, but I still got a plaque, and he'll always take most accurate. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And, but it is, and it's, I understand, look, there's time constraints. I can't get to the range as much as I want to. It's just like anything else. You got to put it on your schedule. You've got to create a budget. and an accounting and a time allotment, not only time budget, but a monetary budget to say, I need to go do this at least once a month or once every couple months, take a course that's going to help polish my routine, get me drawing out of the holster. And our courses or clinics are not always about teaching you a skill. There's times that the most valuable thing learned in our clinics is that that's not the right gun for you. Your equipment sucks. You're not carrying the gun in the right position for your body type or for your draw style. And people are, as they realize that I can't get my great big hand on a little SIG P238, or my little hand can't wrap around the grip of this great big Glock 17 that I'm shooting, but it does work on this one. And it's these discoveries and realizations about your equipment and your techniques that we can alter, not just this, hey, we're going to work on no light shooting or low light shooting or another topic that day.
Yeah, when I first got into really shooting just as a whole, literally very first day I was at the range, I was at FT3 there in Stanton, and they had and still do have an annual membership. And I was like, sign me up, man. Give me the annual membership because this is what I'm choosing to do. I'm going to commit to this. And, that makes it a lot cheaper. And especially because everything was cheaper back then.
Yeah.
Ammo wasn't 35 cents for 9mm,
right.
You could actually afford to shoot. And, but I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And so, the first year I went literally every week to the range because I was like, I'm going to learn this thing. I'm going to do this. And then as I progressed, like today, I can't stand going to the range and just being a dope in a stall. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So stinking boring. Yep. Dunk. Wait 2 seconds. Dunk. It's just like, oh man, I hate it. But what I love, and I love to train, is I love going through training courses like what F.A.S.T.'s got. Because to me, that's where the rubber hits the road. You're doing real world action. You're getting that feedback. You're getting that instruction. Hey, Pete, this is what you're doing wrong. This is what you need to change. Hey, let's go ahead and try this. That's where it actually is just fun. And then, of course, the next step after that for me was I want to get into handgun competitions and challenges. Yeah. And one, because I knew that, like, for me, everything is about self-defense, including the challenges and the competitions. And the way I look at it is my heart doesn't get racing until I'm in certain situations. And a competition, my heart's going to get racing. I got to control my breathing. I got to, center myself. I got to do all that stuff. And at least in a competition, I got a little bit more time than I would actually have in a real life situation. So, it's still not 1-to-1 by any, stretch of the imagination, but it's at least better, right? At least I got my heart racing and I got to, pull the gun out.
Down the sights, you're pressing triggers, you're doing everything that all the components, and it's interesting because both you and I live in both worlds right now. And it's going to be the argument. It's like 1911s versus Glocks. And, that arguments that'll never get resolved is the same one that exists between competitive shooters and defensive shooters. And people who say, oh, I'm in the defensive world. It was actually highlighted by Springfield Armory. And they put together a series of webisodes on YouTube that was Worlds Collide. And it was Rob Pincus and Rob Latham. Rob Latham, awesome guy. Rob Pincus, awesome guy. Both of them consummate professionals in what they do. Rob Latham, big happy guy, and just loves the fact that he's on the range. Loves the fact that he gets to shoot that day. I believe, if I remember, 11-time world champion. And they put them in there and they talk about defensive shooting and they talk about competitive shooting and the differences between the two. And the argument from defensive shooters is like, oh, that stuff will get you killed. And every time I hear that in class, I was like, awesome. So tell me your training experience. Tell me your shooting experience. And it's I took a class here like 6 years ago, and that's what my instructor told me. I said, but you've never really progressed on. I said, let's go shoot competition. Go put yourself on the line. Go put your name up on practice score. And let's see if you continue to do it. And let's see really where you stand. As I mentioned in the very beginning, the moment of realization for me with Bob Vogel's class was we had competitive shooters. We had some of the top competitive shooters honestly in the southwestern United States, I believe, show up for that class. And we also had some defensive shooters. And I've taken competition classes. I've also been in the defensive classes with larger named instructors. And there's always a little bit of a mix, or a few from the other side, if you will, that come up into the classes. And the one thing that I began to realize, and it still holds true, is that defensive shooters will do okay in competition classes. They do. Competition shooters absolutely destroy everybody in a defensive class. And when you kind of evaluate, well, why is that always happening? It just seems to be a universal constant, is that competitive shooters are a master of their weapon. Think about your increase in your skill set, not in shooting, in gun handling, knowing the condition of your gun, being able to reload, getting it out of the holster, getting it up on target. All of those components exist in the competitive shooting world. I don't need to hear a beep on a timer to believe that my life's being threatened. But the technical skill of getting my gun out of the holster, up on target, and stopping the threat as quickly as possible is exactly what happens in the competitive shooting world. Tactics and, the front sight dance and all of the stuff and the startle response that is taught. Okay, yeah, I totally get that. But really, when it gets down to it, when rubber meets the road, what stops the threat? Well, that's ventilating your opponent is what stops the threat. So why would that be seen as a disadvantage in a defensive engagement because you're a competitive shooter?
Right. And not only that, but it's also, for me, it's getting it out of the holster on target, avoiding the white target, right?
Exactly.
Which, we always joke with me. It's like, oh, if there's a white target up there, Pete's going to hit that sucker. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
For those of you who haven't done it, you're not supposed to hit the white target, right? That's the civilian. And, but I mean, you've got to get good at that. And especially for me in my situation where I think about it, I have kids. That means I got to be like on all the time, no matter what, because you can't have a bullet go somewhere you don't want it to go.
Exactly.
And that might mean you have to take an extra quarter to a half second to make sure you were on that target and it's not going to go anywhere else. But you and we live in Southern California where there are people everywhere. There's like 30 million people around us.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter where you're at. If you have to pull that gun in a self-defense situation, you better know where that bullet's going to go.
Exactly. And that's, and I joke around because the 10 millimeter has a tendency to over penetrate. Is that a total, glitz and glamour gun? Absolutely. Would I be carrying it? Sure. When we get into more remote areas, the gun's not there for defensive against persons. It'll work against the persons. Defense against wildlife is what that my purchase was for.
Sure.
Typically, I carry a Glock 19. I carry 147 grain hollow point. It's a Winchester T-series ammunition. Doesn't have the tendency to over-penetrate. Still performs well under double denim tests, and it's going to do what I need it to do without causing a lot of collateral damage. Sure, the felony murder rule comes into play. That if I end up someone ends up dead as a result, not involved, that life will typically result in the person who committed the crime first, my assailant. I still have to deal with civil litigation. I still have to deal with the emotion that, I harmed and or killed somebody that didn't need it. So that focus is extremely true. And honestly, it's something that's completely overlooked by a majority of CCW carriers that come through here. That, I believe that I can do the thing, but man, when your target looks like buckshot at 5 yards with a couple mics, like every one of those could be a potential liability for you. And I don't think people take it seriously. I've heard people come in, I've heard the discussions, I've seen the discussions of like, oh yeah, I carry a gun. Yes. Yeah, you do. You certainly have the right to do it. I applaud that. I applaud anybody taking that burden on their shoulders to carry a gun defensively. But man, you gotta commit to the training. And I just wish that we saw more of it. And like I said, it's not a revenue generating or profit generating type of ploy here. It's, you gotta go do it. There's people that are providing this. I don't know how many times that I personally have recommended competing instructor, Mike Hernandez being one of them. TJ Johnston, All Safe Defense, Ben Hansen, all top end instructors, Dave Anderson at OC Firearms Academy. I'll go right down the list and applaud all of us who work in the community, we work close together. Ben Hansen and I are always having encounters at the range where I've had his students come shoot on my bays before to get them through their qualification to help Ben. Why? Because we're all in it for the same reason. We see the other ones too. And we see the other people out there that it's just a hustle. I'm an instructor. And it's it's the same, kid that got bullied in high school that went on to be a cop so he could wear a badge, but doesn't realize what the job's about. Right. And, they want the status symbol. They want this thing. And those people will lie on Yelp. They'll lie on Facebook. I have people come to me all the time that are like, how is this even possible? And I was like, well, I trained with Navy SEALs. Okay. Well, hold up. They don't let civilians into their training. Like, to work with me on this. That's not what happens. Like, you may have stood in a bay with one of your homeboys that was a SEAL. And if you want to throw that up on the wall that I trained with SEALs, how's this one? I've trained Navy SEALs. Like, if we're really going to start throwing terms around like that, like, yeah, sure, I could totally embellish my resume on that stuff. But we don't. And it's nonsense. But it is a competitive market. It is, where everybody's trying to get a piece of it. But you got to look for the people that are doing it for right reasons. Again, I'll go right through the list. TJ Johnson, doing it for the right reason. Mike and his wife, doing it for the right reasons. Eric Dwayne out of Evans Gun World. Awesome guy, fellow devil dog, doing it for the right reasons. Awesome instructor. Ben Hansen, Dave Anderson, his brother Frank, his whole organization, OC Firearms, are consummate professionals. Love every single one of them.
That was how I got my CCW, was through Dave.
Yeah, Dave's awesome. His brother Frank's awesome. Carrie, awesome. All great people.
That was back before they had the crazy. What is it now? 16 hours to get your CCW?
Yeah, 16 hours. Yeah, and there's people. Imagine this. And this is something I tell in class. How long do you think it takes to go on your first mission as a United States Navy SEAL? How many years of training do you think you have?
I have no idea.
Think about Delta Force, where we're talking very elite people here. Marine Mars Soccer, Force Recon, Rangers.
It's going to be years.
All years and years and years of training to get into an encounter. And you know what? Unfortunately, some of those dudes still die. You can do everything right and still lose. You've got 4 hours of range time, 16-hour course. All right. It's 12 hours academic and 4 hours on the range. And people think they're ready. And here's the reality. They're not. There's some people out there that are cutting that time in half and having them literally shoot part of the qualification that I've had come into my class and divulge that to me, that like, oh yeah, the only thing I had to do to get my CCW was this. And you know what? It shows. It literally shows. It's fascinating to me. It really is.
I think the reason why,
my biggest gripes.
One of the reasons why I've never really gotten into the training side of things, because I love firearms. Like, it's a passion for me. I'm totally hooked on it. I mean, whenever you like Facebook me, hey, we're doing a challenge. Oh crap, I didn't see it, so let me get signed up, right? Because I freaking love shooting. And so, somebody was asking me, they're like, oh, why don't you get into the training side? Because you do all this training in your other business. And I'm like, dude, first of all, I'm not that level. Like, you're talking about something that's really serious. You're going to train someone to use a firearm that they're going to use in a life or death situation. No. This is fun for me. I'm better than the average, guy who just got his gun yesterday. Sure. But no, I am not at that level. I want the professionals training people, including me. I want to learn from them. I'm not interested in screwing up someone else's future because I think I can go make some money training someone. And there's a lot of people in Orange County now who are doing that. It's crazy.
Absolutely. Oh, the list is long. It really is. And we see this stuff and I'm all like, didn't that dude just take a CCW class from us?
Right.
And all of a sudden they're out there teaching. It's fascinating. And I'm not saying that, you had to start shooting when you were 6. I'm not being a gatekeeper. That's not the idea. You had to start and you had to do this and you had to do this. But when you see elements and components of why they're getting into it, of, well, I want the ego and I want to be looked at and I want to be the guy in the front of the classroom and I want to be and you start to realize, okay, it's the used car salesman, firearms instructor type that half-asses everything, that doesn't know what he's doing. He's literally suffering from Dunning-Kruger effect. And it's time and time again. And it's like, and now they're showing people the screwed up way that they learned how to do. It's like,
Right.
like what's getting passed on, what's literally getting passed on. I've had a couple students come through. Oh gosh, this was 7-8 months ago. And they brought up and they were like, we were literally in this class with, we took, just because they go exploring with their training, which is awesome. I highly recommend doing that. Well, let me try, just a class with this person or this group and this group, and they'll go around and pick up nuggets of information. And they dropped into this and they were like, yeah, this is who this guy was. And this is what he was saying. And he goes, we left like halfway through. It was not safe. The range wasn't safe. The way he was conducting things wasn't safe. And we bailed. And so, yeah, but they're out there and people don't know. And you see some high profile cases. There was one, I think it was just up north in California, that was a pretty big name school. Had a couple instructors. They were trying to be the Billy Badass type, threw a Glock on the ground and kicked it, and the gun went off and ended up shooting one of their students' tires out. And
you've been an expert witness in cases.
Yeah,
training cases.
Actually, we just wrapped one. Up. Working on another one right now that I'd love to discuss the details on. When it wraps, I'll ask the counselor if we can talk about it. The first one was just mind-blowing negligence. They ended up settling out of court. The other one is something that absolutely should have been stopped. There was really no excuse for it. Not that there was any, like the NRA top 3 safety violations, the downrange, finger off the trigger, keep it unloaded. There was actually a complication with the firearm that they knew or should have known was a problem, and it ended up injuring somebody. So that's So that's still up in the air. Who knows what's going to happen with that one? But it's fascinating. You look around here, and I'm glad that it doesn't get really high profile, some of the training incidents. But there was one out at a local range that, we always advise anybody with a low cut shirt that, there's a possibility that you may get hot brass. That happened. They went to shake it out, press the trigger, ended up putting a hole through 2 people. There's minor injuries on the range.
I can't tell you how many times I've been hit with hot brass, and it's like, let it burn. You let it burn. You do not freaking all of a sudden start waving the gun around because, it's just like, crap, I'm going to have a burn mark. Nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt for a little while, and that's gonna be the end of it.
It's gonna blister up. Done.
Yep, had one of my instructors take a piece of hot brass in their eye. Literally went down in their glasses.
Yes, that happened to me.
And they're all but they kept going, and we got back to the training facility, and it was a little swollen, big mark. I'm like, man, you okay? And yeah, I'm fine. Let's get some ice on that, and they washed it off. And then we've had other students that tend to be a little excitable, tend to overreact a little bit. And they're doing the hot brass dance, and you've got 3 instructors running over trying to grab the gun to make sure, let's get this safe first and then
take care of the problem
and take care of the issues. So
yeah.
Oh,
I had one go right down my glass. I was using my Glock 43. And so at least I had the presence of mind, keep the Glock pointed down range and then put your head.
Drop that thing out. Yeah.
So it's at least hitting the glass and not rolling around, hitting your eye and all that. But oh my gosh, yeah, that's just part of what happens. It's part of what happens.
Oh, it is. I bet but you and I, we've both been hit with frag. I've had rounds come back at me. There's always something that's
especially when we're shooting steel in an indoor range, man. We're gonna get hit. It's just
who does that, right? We do that. Yeah. Do it safe. Yeah. We make sure it's safe, but it's one of the, it's
why you never take your glasses off ever.
Oh,
those suckers on.
I can show you after we got back, I kept them. We got back from Barry Steel Challenge, which is a match held up in St. George, Utah at SUPS, at Southern Utah Practical Shooters. And we went back to that. It's all steel. That's it. It is all steel. Every target is steel, and it's steel that's so close on some of the targets. You're like, I can't believe we're shooting that. But they've got it angled, so okay, cool. You guys have thought this through. My glasses were so marred up from frag.
Wow.
Like nicks, not like little scratches, like from cleaning them, like actual, like you can feel the indentation or the cut inside the lenses. And I wear Oakley M2s, and they were chawed up, and it's important. Same thing, hearing protection, absolutely critical, and especially as instructors. One of the things that we do for our client base is all of our clients that come into our classes all get electronic headphones for the class. Okay. One, students start feeling claustrophobic when you start putting muffs on that dampen or put pressure on the inside of the ear. The great big industrial ones. Sure. Plus, there's something kind of on their head, and they get a little wobble-headed and not good for marksmanship. Two of the safety glasses that we give them. So that way we can communicate. I don't have to scream at the top of my lungs to get a student to hear me. We can have a normal conversation, and we have found just performance skyrocketed. Those things are like $170 each. It's an investment. It's where our revenue for the company goes to take us to the next level. But it's little things like that to show, you got to have this stuff. If you're going to be a shooter, if you want to be a shooter, don't chintz it. We see people that all the time, they'll come in and they'll have grandpa's 38 and his ammo from when he was a cop in, LA in the 60s. And I'm gonna shoot this for my CCW qual. And you're like, that's not safe. Right. Let's not do that. So, but yeah, I get it. People want to protect themselves, but gosh, unfortunately it is an investment. The time is a time investment, monetary investment. Protecting our lives is important, but it also has a cost with it. Sure. Better than the alternative. Funerals these days are what, $10,000, $15,000? Someone's going to pay for that. Right. So, handgun, $500-$600 training, $125 every couple of months, a little cheaper. At least it's spread out over a longer amount of time.
And it's fun.
Funerals
aren't fun, but shooting is fun.
But hey, at that point, your problems are over anyway. So
that's true.
Cares, right?
That's true.
So yeah, that's your family. Got to worry about that one.
Hey man, I appreciate you taking all this time and sharing all this insight with us. If someone wants to go to one of your training courses, what's the website?
www.fastoc.com. Fast like a fast car, OC like Orange County.com.
And what does FAST stand for? Just so they understand, it's not just about being fast.
It's not just about being fast. Yeah, it's a firearms and safety training Orange County. That was too long of a website. So I was able to get a 6-letter website early on. I mean, consider this is like back 2012, 2013 when everything hadn't been snapped up yet. And I was able to get a 6-letter website, which was FastOC. And we went with that. And our contact information is there on the website, email, phone, anytime. More than happy to have a conversation with future or existing clients, get you guided the right way.
I can honestly tell everyone, I cannot recommend FastOC enough. I have done a lot of their training, certainly not all of their trainings because they've got a ton, but I've never been disappointed with anything. In fact, my most recent CCW renewal I took with Lance. I've been, right now with everything going on, I got people calling me all the time. Hey, Pete, I think you were the smart one and started carrying a gun. What do I got to do? And I'm like, go sign up at FastOC, go take their CCW course, go through it. And what have you heard, just real quick, about LA County and CCWs? Because I've got friends who are now in LA County and they're applying because they're like, he's opening it up. Is that what you're saying?
Be a 400% increase in the number of
400% times zero, though,
is still zero. Yeah, exactly. I think it's a total political move. I encourage movement in the right direction no matter what. If you say there's going to be an increase, okay, I'll applaud that. I don't want to have that turn into a political conversation, but I will say that, this coming election, especially when the sheriff's up for re-election, the candidates should be very closely evaluated for somebody who aligns with your beliefs or what you find important. They were very close last election for sheriff to getting a pro-gun, pro-CCW sheriff into that office. Were there irregularities? Absolutely. There were certainly voting irregularities that got Villanueva into office, but I do encourage anybody to apply. I'll say it this way, apply. If you get a rejection, so be it. Every rejection is more firepower for California Rifle Pistol Association or Michelle and Associates, their attorneys, to take that cause up and give that firepower to the case to fight against this non-issue thing. I get asked all the time, well, who's fighting for our rights? Who's pushing for our
CRPA.
rights? CRPA is. And just like there's a lot of fraud and charlatan instructors out there, there's a lot of fraudulent and charlatan gun rights groups out there.
Yeah, some of them.
Oh, I know some of them. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like all you got to do is pull a 460 or 460A form. You'll find out where that money's going.
Yep.
And it's not to rights, but I look at their staff as well and see who's running the show. And what their background is. If they lied about being in the Marines and took money from a firearms instruction company, they may not be reputable, in my opinion. So look very closely. One of the first things with CRPA, and interest of full disclosure, I am affiliated with CRPA. I'm a life member. I host a chapter here at F.A.S.T for the North Orange County Gun Owners Group. And
they are the ones, by the way, guys, they're the ones who really fight for our rights in California. They're the ones who got us Freedom Week, where we could get magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, whenever that was last year, 2 years ago. Yeah, the ammo ban, they're fighting all of that. They're the ones who got this Ninth Circuit. Yep.
Yeah, Duncan versus Becerra.
It's not the NRA. Not that the NRA doesn't have anything. They do.
I'm all about NRA bashing and the ACMAC thing too.
I'm just saying it's CRPA. That's all I'm saying. They get all the credit.
Becerra was financed by the NRA. They are giving, and the reason, and everybody's pissed at the NRA. I'm the first one to fly that banner too, but they are doing what they're doing. But as soon as NRA puts their name on it, Bloomberg, all of those start putting money to the opposition of it. So if it looks like a small grassroots organization, we do a lot better with it. But NRA is actually funding. I've had the privilege of looking at that information, seeing that information for sure.
But I just want people to understand, it's the CRPA, it's Michelle and Associates that are fighting the actual in-court battles. It's our guys.
Yeah, they're the ones up there. And the funny thing about that is go look at this recent Duncan versus Becerra when Ninth Circuit gave their opinion, and then look at some of the local, groups and who's waving the banner of we won, never donated a dime, never sent a brief, never put anything into it, but are using it for a marketing purpose, saying, look what we did for you, while they stuff cash in their pockets, in my opinion. In my term. Yep.
Interesting.
So it's, really look at who did it. When CRPA says our attorney that we paid for went up there and argued it, and how many people that said, yeah, we cheered you on and we won, so give us money to do what? Right. What are you doing? If you see a political organization like that, or a gun rights group out there that's fronting into, you look at the structure of it. We see it all the time. It's something we can discuss offline. You can talk about later, but like how that all works and how it all gets funneled. There's so many out there. Why? Because we're worried about our rights. We want our gun rights. We want to be able to carry. We want our standard cap magazines. We want our rifles unaltered from the original design and being able to have those. And they play on that fear. It's the same way scammers and Nigerian print scams work, or IRS scams work. They scare you into it to give them money, and then there's literally no way to validate where that money actually went. Well, actually there is, called a 460 form that you have to file. Oh, well, I guess some people stopped filing those. Oh. So definitely look into it before you give a dime. I highly encourage it. And don't take our word. Don't take Pete's word for it. Look into it. Ask for hey, show me where your money is going. That's the first thing I did when CRPA approached me to host a chapter. I was like, let me see your last 3-year finances. And when I looked and saw Chuck Michelle hadn't taken a dime, I was like, okay, you know what? That's awesome. Refuse the thing. And then you look at the legal fees, and they cut their legal fees. You're talking a top shelf, top tier law firm that are billing attorneys at $600 to $800 or $1,000 an hour for services, is sitting there and cutting their rates 75% to make sure that we get our rights. Yeah, they're doing it right.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Lance, man, thanks so much for joining us, guys. Again, it's fastoc.com. Cameron, you've been great commenting on our Facebook post here while we've been live. I would recommend that you move about a mile into Orange County just to ensure you get your CCW. But real quick, Lance, can you take your class and use it for your CCW course requirement for LA County?
That is something we've chased down. Orange County has a approved providers list.
Right, they do. And I have no idea what LA County
does.
is.
Same thing. LA County has this suggested providers. And I've contacted LA County. Our corporate counsel's contacted LA County. We've had students that have gone to Torrance and they've accepted it. They've accepted the training certificate.
Okay.
I don't want to make a bold claim and say, yes, we're approved, because there's literally no approved list.
Right.
And we have not found a vector or a method to actually getting on that list that LA County, we know for sure, is going to be like, yes, this is good. There's the state has a training requirement. I think it's 25610 Alpha 4. I believe that was what it is. It says this is what you have to do for a CCW in the state. Counties can make it more restrictive or more intense. And that if we meet that requirement, then I mean, that's literally all we have to go by right now until we get a more official, firm answer from the County of LA or the individual cities.
Yeah. See, guys, you got to understand, LA County doesn't issue CCWs. So they're like, how do we do this?
Yeah. Who trains?
We need to have a list, you know? Yeah. So
exactly.
Anyway, Lance, thanks so much, man, for being on. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Guys, we'll be back next week. Dan will be back, and we'll have another great topic next week. So join us then. Take care, everybody.
You've been listening to the From Concealment podcast with Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams. Be sure to tune in next week for more gun talk. Also, check out the From Concealment website for more shooting-related goodness at FromConcealment.com.